I've been living in Oxfordshire for about 4 years now, and I've been to this particular nature reserve about 70 times or so. It's about 15 minutes drive away. However, I've never really been to this particular part, and hopefully in the establishing shots you should see how nice this is. It's been a rather nice day. In fact, I can't remember a time as good as this for hiking in recent memory, really. Of course, you have all these places like, well, for me, the Scottish Highlands and all these special locations that you go to once in a while, very rarely even. But it's just the places that you live next to. That's really where you start to feel at home. It's interesting. I've moved a lot since I've been living in England. Um, Moved down to England in 2013. And it's fascinating. I feel like Oxfordshire, the Chiltern Hills region especially, that's really where I feel most at home now, actually. I've been to a lot of different hills and ridges, lots of different walks, hours and hours and hours. Especially last year, I made a concerted effort to get out more, of course, in relation to my struggles with nature and just being outdoors generally. But that's not really what I want to talk about today, unfortunately. What it is that I'm aware that I had this desire to create a video, to record a video, to cap this rather wonderful day off. Admittedly, I've been walking out here for quite a long time now. I'm just up on this hill, this ridge by myself, and I actually can't think of anything to say, and that concerns me. Not so much for the production of the channel itself, but just in general terms. It's this desire to always be making something, the desire to always create. I was speaking to a friend recently that I'm rather obsessed with trying to make an impression, trying to get my values and desires across, trying to encapsulate all the things that I love and hold dear. Even to the point where just today, so this is my day off, and I felt a bit restless, and that's something restlessness is something I've talked about in the past, especially in relation to writing. So for example, just this morning, I created a new page for my website in which I list various things that I value, and I encapsulate why I value each of them in turn. There's a grey squirrel just went past there, hopping along. You don't see many red squirrels here, at least. So there's always a desire to create something, and it's a frustrating thing. It's almost as if I'm never really happy with where I am, even though the fact that I didn't think even last year really that I would be doing the thesis. I'm currently working on that, and it's the biggest and most important thing that I'm doing. However, there's always something else that can be done. And of course, this sounds like it could be that I'm in some way gloating about this, or that I'm saying, look at my work ethic. That's actually not what I'm saying at all. It's more of a problem, actually. And I realise that I often go for walks in a sense to to soak up the land, the inspiration of the land. I think being out here certainly helps generate ideas. Well, in fact, the generation of ideas is not exactly the issue that I have, and that's something I have mentioned before. It's the fact that there are certain limitations and blockages and obstacles to getting things out there, of course, and I have mentioned this before. What I think it is that there are certain dispositions, certain types of people that always feel like they need to say something, and I don't mean extroverts. I don't mean narcissists or people that want to stay in the limelight, things like this. What I mean is people that feel as if every moment should be important and in some way valuable, especially in an artistic sense. And I think that's the case for me. Of course, there are There are certainly times where I can just relax, but never really feel comfortable just indulging in entertainment. That's something that I do sometimes, especially after a hard day's work. But if you have one life to live, I don't really see why you would squander it on consuming things, as opposed to generating things, as opposed to creating things, leaving your mark. I have a friend that I've known since I was about 7 years old, and rather different disposition in him, really. He has more of a pragmatic view of things. Doesn't really have that drive to create, because we all have our passions and interests and different senses of duty and purpose in life. I just can't really. I don't really see how that plays out in life, though. It's not stagnation. It's definitely not stagnation. There's a roe deer there. I'll keep that in the video. It's definitely not stagnation, not at all. It's just that I can't really see how that plays out. How you go through life not wanting to make something, not wanting to, in an artistic sense, not wanting to do something challenging, not want to do something that again allows people to remember you as in a certain way. And it's interesting. I think I'm rather preoccupied with that. It's frustrating because if I say that I'm preoccupied with it, people have a tendency to think that I'm taking life too seriously. The idea of taking life not seriously is one of the most ridiculous notions that I'm aware of. Being silly about life it's incomprehensible to me. In fact, it's alien. In my view, life should be very much taken seriously. In my view, I think you should want to cultivate a certain self-image, not in a narcissistic way, not in a self-absorbed and self-obsessed way, but if you have one life and you're a human on this earth, I think you should. I think people should want to. I think you should want to be remembered in a certain way. The way I speak sometimes makes me sometimes sound as if I'm 60 or 70 years old. It's just a natural way that I've always kind of thought about things, really. 29 years old now. It's funny because I can't find humour in it though, because I can imagine 40, 45, 50, what it would potentially be like then. Perhaps if I've done more, that sort of the desire to, the strain would go away, essentially. I've been thinking a lot about different figures in history, especially in art and literature. People like William Morris, of course Lord Dunsany, Tolkien, William Blake. You might be able to see where I'm going with this, but I don't want to suggest that I'm like these people. Not at all. I don't have nearly as enough talent. But what it is that drive, that creative drive. Almost like a madness in a sense. In some ways, thinking about these figures from history makes it easier in a sense, because I can sort of latch onto them and think there's a precedence for this sort of thing. Although it does make it more frustrating knowing that you obviously can never really attain to that sort of perfection. You can never really attain to that level of mastery that these people had. It's curious. I feel like I should not feel like this, because with death acceptance, that whole movement that you might be aware of, with generally just being aware of ephemerality and limits and things like this, and especially reading ecological literature and just taking in any kind of worldly art, all things fade. So you might obviously think, why care? Ozymandias is obviously the perfect example. The fact that even a great ruler, even his works could rust and fade away and crumble. In the end, it doesn't really matter. But the concern really is not so much what happens after you die, the aftermath, the legacy that you leave behind, really, because you're dead. It doesn't really impact you, of course. It's more the feeling of, again, that strong desire to create um, in life, in the present moment, currently. And I've been speaking to a friend about this quite recently, in fact, which is possibly why I'm recording this right now. The desire to create, for me, has an almost spiritual dimension. Of course, a lot of people have this feeling. Um, However, I feel like my feeling is quite heightened. It's almost like an upwelling of feeling, especially it happens a lot when I listen to music. There are certain times where I feel so overwhelmed by the desire to create and to say something, and the desire to express all that I am and all that I think that the world should be. Um, it's so overpowering that I just sometimes shake my head or sigh, and I'm not really portraying this well here. Of course, it's obviously difficult to put into words, but I don't know. It's funny because this sort of feeling drives me to create this sort of video, and yet as I'm saying these words, I'm constantly thinking, should I put this online? But the very fact that I'm creating this video is part of the desire to even show that I feel this way. Obviously, you could create the artifact in itself. You could create the short story. You could create the painting or the film or whatever it might be, the sculpture. And perhaps I should be doing that right now, but instead I'm creating this video because I feel like, in some ways, in a meta sense, in an overarching sense, it's almost better to get this message across. Because if you read a story, for example, obviously a lot of meaning can be taken from that, and you can learn about the author, and you can feel connected with the author. But it's these types of messages, and I think that's why I'm leaning towards non-fiction nowadays. There's a certain filter in fiction, of course. You could argue that fiction has a lot more merit and more artistic merit. It's your own creation. It's singular to you. But also, non-fiction allows you to actually discuss these values and ideas and concepts that you hold dear. So there's nothing really substantial in this video. I just wanted to create it. Again, on this channel that's dedicated to nature and literature, art, architecture, philosophy, things like this. Just want to get my thoughts across, whoever it might be. And hopefully, as I say, most of the time, other people can gain something from this as well if they're in a similar situation. So thanks for watching, everyone. Till next time.